Hey guys, today I wanted to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time, Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl. I didn't see this film when it was first released in 2003, as I was only 2 years old at the time. However, I did see it when I was around 12 years old, and I've been in love with it ever since. I mean, this movie's got it all. Skeleton pirates, a treasure hunt, naval battles, crazy stunts, comedy and sword fights, all set in the beautiful Caribbean waters in the 1700s. I could go on for ages about the many reasons as to why I enjoy this movie so much, but today I wanted to talk about one of the most interesting elements of this film, its use of multiple protagonists. Now, I'm sure everyone has seen this movie, after all it did come out over 15 years ago, so I'm not going to go over every plot point in detail, I'll just outline the ones that are important to my point. The events in Pirates of the Caribbean are explored from the perspective of three different characters: William Turner, Elizabeth Swann, and Jack Sparrow. Their stories all intertwine in a way that's coherent and develops as the story goes on. The movie revolves around constant action and humor, so you'd think following the story of three different characters and developing their separate arcs would be impossible. Somehow, this movie successfully pulls it off, and today I'm going to explore how the filmmakers did it. The film begins with a prologue to the story. We see a young Elizabeth Swann with her father, the governor, and James Norrington, her future fiancé, all on board a ship. She's singing about pirates and expresses her interest in them, saying that she thinks it would be exciting to meet one. Right away, Norrington stops her and dismisses what she says, telling her that all pirates are cruel and vile. He's acting condescending towards her and shows her very little regard for her feelings. On the other hand, Governor Swann is attempting to protect Elizabeth from reality. He says that he's concerned about the effect that the subject will have on his daughter, and she responds by saying that she finds it all fascinating, but once again, her father shuts her down. From a young age, Elizabeth is forbidden from pursuing her interests and discovering more about the world. Right from the beginning of the movie, her character's motivations are established. She wants to take control and live her life without men dictating what she can and cannot do. When we first meet present-day Will, he's at Elizabeth's house, running errands as a blacksmith. He presents Mr. Swann with a sword he is obviously passionate about, as shown through his skill and knowledge of the blade. The governor tells Will to thank his boss for the fine craftsmanship, even though we can clearly tell that Will was the one who made it. Not being able to take credit for his hard work is something that hurts Will. However, due to his place in society, he isn't able to contradict Mr. Swann and stand up for himself. After his meeting with the governor, Will has a short dialogue with Elizabeth, where we learn more about the struggles he has to face due to his class. They're both very happy to see one another, however, he refuses to refer to her by her first name and insists that they keep their relationship formal. She attempts to flirt with him and he refuses to acknowledge it. However, as he is saying goodbye, Will says her first name under his breath, which shows that he wishes his relationship with her was of a different nature. At this current point in the story, Will is unable to act on his feelings, restricted by his need to conform to the expected societal norms. The third and final protagonist comes in the form of Jack Sparrow. He's introduced shortly after Will and Elizabeth part ways, and we immediately get a sense of how goofy and clever his character can be. He has some great dialogue with the guards on board the ship, talking about how he wants to steal a vessel from right under their noses. It's really funny and just one of the many comedic moments that he brings to the table. While this is happening, Elizabeth gets proposed to by Commodore Norrington. Again, her life is being controlled by the men in power, as she feels the societal pressures and the expectation that she must marry Norrington. All of these societal pressures metaphorically suffocate her, and so does the corset that she's wearing. She can't catch her breath and ends up falling into the sea, where Jack dives in and saves her. As he pulls her back onto land, he rips off her corset and allows her to breathe again. It's important to note that this corset was given to her by another powerful man in charge of her life, her father. In a YouTube video titled Pirates of the Caribbean: Accidentally Genius, Stephen Crosex made the connection that when Jack saves her life by ripping off her corset, it's a symbol that he is freeing her of the pressures of society. This is the first moment where Jack Sparrow's character is used as a tool to develop the other protagonists. Since he isn't going through a ton of obvious character development himself, it's easy to set up scenarios that allow Will and Elizabeth to learn more of themselves through Jack. After Elizabeth gets rescued, Will and Jack meet for the first time. Will immediately makes his distrust for pirates clear and attempts to fight Jack, and after a long battle ensues, his actions end up being credited to someone else once again. The owner of his blacksmith shop receives praise for taking down the pirate, although in reality Will did most of the work. This reminds the audience of how Will is treated as lesser in society and reinforces the belief that something needs to change for him. Following their fight, Jack is imprisoned and Elizabeth gets captured by the pirates. The first big decision that Will must face is how to go about rescuing Elizabeth. He can live by his morals and hope that the incompetent Navy will rescue her, or he can go against everything he believes in and find her with the help of a pirate. He decides to place his faith in Jack, showing that he is willing to put aside his personal values in order to save the woman he loves. The alliance between Jack and Will helps both characters, each getting the first part of their current desires met. Will gets help finding Elizabeth, and Jack gets a shot at reclaiming the Black Pearl. Will just took the first step in a story arc that accomplishes his long-term goals of winning over Elizabeth and finding his proper place in society. As the story progresses, Will learns of his true heritage, and Jack explains that he is the descendant of a pirate. In line with his hatred for pirates, Will refuses to believe what Jack tells him. However, as the two spend more and more time together, Will is clearly influenced by him and learns more about who he is meant to be and the abilities he possesses. This is made evident by the choices Will makes and what actions he justifies as necessary to rescue Elizabeth. He steals a ship from the Royal Navy, which he takes to Tortuga, the pirate cove. He's taken aback by the absolute freedom and filth of the place, however he knows what must be done and accepts it as part of the job. His sense of propriety is slowly being replaced with more open and accepting beliefs, and he realizes that societal status is not what defines a man. He even begins to think more and more like a pirate. When he gets suspicious of Jack's plan, he decides to eavesdrop on his conversation with Gibbs and takes matters into his own hands. Later, he invokes his newfound knowledge of piracy and attempts to negotiate with Barbossa and his crew. And while it's not completely successful, it shows that his time with Jack has helped him develop. He is now attuned to the world of pirates and willing to live in their world and play by their rules. Will's failed negotiations with Barbossa lead to Elizabeth and Jack being marooned on a deserted island together. Here is where we see some of the most important events in Elizabeth's arc, where she displays her cunning abilities and her newfound independence. Prior to this scene, Elizabeth heard about the legendary tale of how Jack Sparrow escaped the very same island that they're on, and she confronts him about it and asks what his plan is. He confesses that the story was over-dramatized and that his escape was essentially pure luck. Jack finds an old stash of rum on the island and seems to give up all hope of rescue, and this is where Elizabeth decides she needs to take matters into her own hands. She tricks Jack into getting so drunk that he passes out, and while he's unconscious, she destroys all the rum and uses it to create a huge signal fire. While she's trying to save herself from starvation on the island, her plan also addresses the problems Jack faces with alcohol, albeit briefly. This scene serves as a turning point in Elizabeth's character because she directly disobeys what a man told her to do and comes up with her own plan. In doing so, she prevents Jack from giving up and helps everyone's story progress further. While helping Elizabeth and Will realize their short-term goals of survival and rescue, Jack allows them to learn more about themselves. When each character spends time alone with him, they are forced to take themselves out of their comfort zone and confront the problems they face. All of their interactions and development come together at the climax of the movie during the siege on Isla de Muerta. With Jack, Will is engaged in piracy, learned of his origins, got real combat experience, and negotiated with pirates. All of his newfound experience pays off when he and Jack deceive Barbossa. Will doesn't even need to speak to Jack to understand the plan. Enough time spent with pirates and a few glances between the two allow him to comprehend what needs to be done with the cursed gold. He is now able to truly think like a pirate, and he's willing to do whatever is necessary for their survival. With pirates, his societal class doesn't matter as long as he can remain one step ahead of the rest. There's also Elizabeth, who has also negotiated with pirates, fought in battle, and learned to fend for herself. She attempts to rally the pirates to help Jack and Will, but when they turn her down, she doesn't give up. She single-handedly sets off by herself to the island and plays a big role in taking down Barbossa and his crew. She doesn't need the approval of others and can accomplish whatever she sets out to do without the help of other men. After the final battle winds down, Will and Elizabeth end up back in Port Royal, with Jack set to be put to death for his crimes of piracy. Will confesses his love for Elizabeth, showing that he no longer feels the need to hold back his feelings simply because society tells him to. At this point, both Will and Elizabeth feel a sense of loyalty to their captain Jack, and Will frees Jack Sparrow in an attempt to save him. They nearly escape, but end up being caught by Norrington and his men. Will vouches for Sparrow, claiming that he is a good man, and Norrington reminds him of his place in society, insinuating that he doesn't get a say in the matter. Will completes his arc by declaring that his place is between the Navy and Jack, once again proving that he no longer cares how he is perceived by society and that all he seeks is self-actualization. Will has learned to accept his origins and recognizes himself as a pirate, the kind of man he wants to be. Elizabeth declares her love for Will, and she too places herself between Norrington and Jack. Will's desire to be in a relationship with her has finally been realized, and Elizabeth has now learned how to use those who held her back to her advantage. She uses the influential men in her life to get the Navy to stand down and grants the three of them the freedom from persecution. She's finally able to share a peaceful moment with Will, and in the end, as any good father should, Governor Swan tells her that her happiness is what matters most. Everyone gets a happy ending, meeting both their long and short-term goals, all while discovering their true identities. Alright guys, that's it. Thanks so much for watching the video. I spent a while on this one. In the past few months I've just been focusing on graduating from high school, but now that it's the summer, I've got a lot more time to make better content and upload more frequently. Thanks so much for the support on my previous One Marvelous Scene video. Thanks to NanoV Movies for putting it in the playlist. I'm glad you guys enjoyed that one. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you next time.
Drink up, me hearties, yo ho.